Hey guys, Delora Dabbles here, and thank you for joining me for this week's quarantine crafting update. So, I want to talk about spinning first because I finished some more. Oh shoot, I didn't grab them. I never grab them. Oh my gosh, I'm bad at this. Okay, so this is the set from the first batch that I've labeled A because it took me multiple bobbins to fill. I actually had to fill 3 of these bobbins because the bigger my yarn is on my Cassandra, the less it wants to lay tightly onto the bobbin. I thought it was a tensioning issue, but I'm not actually sure what's going on with that. But it is what it is. I had to fill up 3 bobbins, not a big deal. So I have 3 sets of A and 3 sets of B. So that's pretty consistent. I know that I'm going to get 3 balls out of the next one. But set A has an average grist of around 1,500 yards per pound. B2 has an average grist of about 1,800 yards per pound. That's 300 yards per pound more. And there is a semi-noticeable difference. This one is the B, this one is the A. These I feel like are more thick and thin, and these are more right in the middle of what this one would be if you averaged it out. So it's not a total failure, you know, they're gonna match. But also if I find that once I start knitting with this and there is a noticeable size difference in the knitted fabric between balls, and I'm probably gonna swatch for that too. I'm probably gonna take a set from A and a set from B and swatch them and see about switching them every row, kind of like what I did for the tank top to keep the colors from variegating. I divided my yarn supply into 2 balls and switched them out every couple of rows, which was super easy. All you do as you change rows to change colors, you just overlace the yarn, you knit a couple rows, overlace, 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 overlace. And it makes a really nice seam line inside the fabric that is not too terribly noticeable. Where is it? Is this the wrong side? This is the wrong side. There we go. Oh, haven't picked this up in a while, but here's the seam line. And that's where I fucked it up. But this is where I decided to do the simple overlay, overlay, overlay thing that I just described. I have not been knitting lately because this shoulder has been bothering me, and it seems to be all over. Now, I could probably get away with knitting again now, but I think I want to give it another few days because I do know that whenever it was at its worst, knitting did aggravate it. So until it's completely good and normal and I'm not waking up with soreness, then I'll start knitting again. And I think what it is that it's stress. It's the way I've been sleeping. It's the pillows I've been using. I have had my pillows for a very long time, like 4 or 5 years now. So I actually got one of those wavy orthopedic pillows, and it knocked the soreness and the pain right out. But whenever I wake up, I still have a little bit of like achiness, I guess you'd call it. Anyway, I have been crocheting, because whenever I crochet, I'm just doing this, moving the hook through the stitches, just this movement over and over. When I knit, I'm doing this. I'm moving both hands, both wrists. Both of my shoulders are having, you know, muscle tightening, loosening stuff that happens whenever you use your fine motor skills, because these muscles, if you just sit here and do this, you can feel it, like especially here and on the back of your hands. As it moves up, it's still moving these muscles a little bit. You just feel it less and less, and I guarantee you that's what's been aggravating my already messed up shoulder. But anywho, that's why I've been crocheting predominantly. And let's take a look at that project. This shawl is getting big, guys. Oh my gosh, it's getting so big. As you can see, I have done most of the body, and now I'm doing the finer lace edging down here. You can see it better whenever it's up against the wall. Now, once I block this and stretch it out, it's going to be even bigger and even more open and lacy. And see how pretty? I just can't wait to finish it and block it and see it in its final form. I'm really excited. So that's how that project is going along. And of course, because I have not been knitting, I have made very little progress on this tank top, although it really is almost done. I have like an inch and a half, maybe just an inch more, and then I bind off and knit for the collar. Like, that's it. Something else. New spinning project. I have gotten spinner's fatigue from these. And it really didn't help that once I counted this up, I realized it was a slightly different gauge from the first batch. So the third batch, I really want to try to get right in between these two. So this yard per pound is 1,500. This yard per pound is 1,800. I want my next batch to be between 15 and 1,800 yards per pound, something like 16, 17. And if it's 15, even better. If it's 18, even better. Because I don't think I'm actually going to need an entire pound and a half to do a sweater with this gauge of yarn. But if I have one set that is thicker or one set that is thinner, then I can decide I'll use the thicker yarn for the sleeves or the thinner yarn for the sleeves. That is probably like the easiest thing to do whenever you've messed up your gauge and you want to do something big, is pick a segment of the garment that you would want to be knit finer. I'm thinking sleeves. They're high friction areas. Yes. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see where that goes. The new spinning project was actually a salvage operation. My friend got into my Gotland wool. I had bought this Gotland wool quite a long time ago. It's been about 6 months now, I think. And I just really wanted to experiment with it and try it out. It was a really good price on Paradise Fibers. And the elf cloaks from Lord of the Rings were spun and then woven with 100% Gotland. Yeah. And one of my friends actually had one of those cloaks, so I wore it and was like, oh my god, this is so cool. I need Gotland in my life. So I ordered some. Gotland is incredibly difficult to spin on my Cassandra. It is incredibly difficult to spin unless you have something that is very high twist and that you don't have a snatchy take up. What I have noticed with my Cassandra is that if my bobbins, like this one, I put an S on it for smooth. This bobbin is completely smooth. I have not been the best to my bobbins, but even so, some of my bobbins have warped and gotten wonky. And so whenever you lay them on your flyer and they start to spin, they don't spin like perfectly. They'll like wobble. Not quite like that, but you guys feel me. This will wobble. And where it wobbles, so like if this is my good bobbin, this one is like this. Some of my bobbins are like this. So whenever they spin, they skid on one side here. And whenever they skid, it slows down the take up and then snatches it again. Slows it down, snatches it. Slows it down, snatches it. So as I'm spinning, you know, my take up, instead of going like this, my take-up is going like this. Not good. Not good at all. So there's that problem. And even if it's just a minute little ding, 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 instead of a smooth go, it's going to snatch that Gotland right out of your hand. Gotland is very silky. So Fred got into the Gotland and he romped around in it. He didn't really chew it because there wasn't a lot of like crispy fibers. I don't know what it is about cat saliva that makes wool fibers feel crispy, but they do. So he didn't chew on it because the fibers didn't feel crispy. He just romped around in it. The easiest way for me to fix that was to roll the Gotland into roll lags like this. But I figure, you know, since I've been looking at a lot of shawl patterns, and Gotland spins so nicely when you spin it very fine, I figured blending it half and half Gotland and merino would make it possible for me to actually spin on my spinning wheel, and I was correct. It was possible to spin on my spinning wheel. So I am very happy with the way these turned out. The color is amazing. So these are what the Rolags look like. And I just layered the Rolags, one layer merino, one layer Gotland, and rolled them up. And anytime you roll Rolags, they're going to blend like this. So yes, the finished yarn looks something like this. And it is just so gorgeous. I'm really loving this shade of blue. This is the same shade of blue that I used for sections of this project. It is that half and half periwinkle turquoise jacquard acid dye mixed together. And they really, whenever I dyed up the wool, they kind of moved around a bit. Some areas were more turquoise, some areas were more periwinkle, and some areas were perfectly blended. So whenever I went to make the Rolags, it actually made like, because Gotland is a perfect natural gray heather, with my merino wool being dyed in an uneven way, and I didn't intend for this, I wanted it to be solid, but it dyed up unevenly and I just went with it. But whenever you blend those uneven colors, even though I tried to get a solid and I got more of like a mottled turquoise periwinkle, once I blended it up, it made a blue heather that matches the gray heather much better. So it's not just blue with gray heather, it's blue heather on gray heather, and it's just very beautiful, just very beautiful. And what I mean by heather, of course, is whenever you have multiple tones of the same color unevenly dispersed throughout to make this really pretty color. And the Gotland gives it really nice shine and luster. And the merino gives it a lot of softness and that next to skin softness. Now, I was going to fill this bobbin entirely up like I did for these, but what I learned with these was that once you get to a certain point with these bobbins, on my wheel with my Cassandra, the way that I've kept it up the last year, the entire bobbin does not want to fill up without increasing the take up so much so that the flyer doesn't get started going. So it won't wrap your yarn tightly. With singles, it wraps your yarn pretty tightly starting off, like it's like compacted very, very nicely. As you move up the bobbin, it gets less and less compacted to where here, even though this is lace weight, I can actually, like, it's a little soft, a little bit soft. Whenever I am plying yarn and the yarn is bigger, it gets very soft. My fingers will sink right into the bobbin sometimes, and I'm like, holy crap. And I'm switching hooks often. I'm layering it very thinly, and still I'm having this problem. So I know that these bobbins don't want to fill all the way up without, and like even whenever I do adjust the take up to ridiculous amounts to where it's practically snatching the yarn from me just to try to get it to roll onto the bobbin at all, the flyer head doesn't want to kick off right away. Sometimes the flyer head will just stay there. The wheel is moving, everything's going, the flyer head just stays there, and then I have to I have to let it take yarn in to get it to kickstart and go. And I do feel like my flyer head is spinning slower once I get to the end of a bobbin. The problems really don't get super pronounced until I get 3/4 of the way through the bobbin. and then I start to see the problems. So that's why with this one, I didn't fill it completely, even though I have the fiber to fill it completely, and I'm probably going to have to do a smaller skein of this. I just didn't want the hassle, really, of filling the bobbin to capacity and having to deal with all those problems with that. I do have a bobbin on the wheel right now that is pretty much, I'd say, halfway through to being this size. It's about halfway through to here. So I'm almost done with this. It's kind of like, wow, like I just started this project this week and I'm already almost done with it. Because I really like to spin thin singles. And thin singles take longer to spin, but for me they're quicker because I'll just sit there and do it all day. If I have to spin thicker, I don't know what happens, but I just can't bring myself to do it. It's just not interesting to me. I'm not excited about it. Maybe that's why I lost interest in this project. I wasn't going to be able to knit the Lestrange cloak from it, so I just lost interest in it. And perhaps that's another reason why I got the spinner's fatigue and moved on to another project before finishing this one. So, interesting, but yeah, I definitely need to be excited about my projects before I go forward. There are several shawl patterns that I've been looking at. I haven't decided on a single one yet for this yarn, but I do think I want to do a beaded shawl because I just love beaded shawls. So I will be looking up different beads and probably ordering some beads online as opposed to going to the store because bicycles in Houston suck. You really do need a car to get around. With that said, I have an exciting present to myself coming in sometime next week. So for the next quarantine crafting update, I will probably be unboxing that present to myself. This present happened to cost the same as my copay for therapy, except I didn't have therapy this week. And whenever I saw this, I was like, that's the price I pay for therapy, but I didn't even go to therapy this week, and like I have that. Oh my god, it's a sign. So you'll just have to wait and see what the surprise is. And until next time, happy dabbling and bye-bye.